Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Cheeseadelphia. We are getting started with our next and final round of 8 series for the quarterfinals. It is going to be an awesome Protoss versus Protoss, something that I feel like I haven't gotten to see enough of lately. I'm joined by Zombie Grub now. What's up?
Yeah, I feel very uncomfortable on this side of the casting setup.
You might say that it's the right side.
No, I would say it's the wrong side.
It's actually the left side for the audience.
I guess that's true. But you asked me if I would say it.
So, Probe versus Rail, our next series. We talked a little bit about how both of these players are going to be from the non-North American region. They both came out here very long trips. I mean, not only Rail coming out from Europe, like that's a pretty long trip in and of itself. Probe, just an absurdly long trip all the way from Australia.
Actually, it was from China.
Oh yeah, actually, it was funny. He was telling me, China to the west coast of the United States, all the way to here now. So he's just been traveling, and then actually next week he's going to go to Germany.
Yes, he is. Wait, is it something after that?
Maybe. He didn't tell me.
It's 4 weeks, 4 different places is what he tweeted. So I don't know the one after it is, but it may, I don't know. Anyways, he has been traveling a lot. So yeah, these guys are both maybe you know, not the best of shape, but it seems that they're getting over whatever jet lag or I doubt there's culture shock, but whatever's happening, they seem to be getting over it pretty quickly. And for a PvP, they're going to have to be quite on point. This matchup is it can be explosive from start to finish. Along with like TVT, it does kind of have like this sometimes really defined early, really defined mid, and then the supreme late game that we sometimes see that can be a little silly. I mean, Mass Air, Protoss, is always a little silly.
A lot of the time, I would say these days we end up getting into that Charge-Lot Archon versus Charge-Lot Archon battle. So that's what I'm expecting. But Probe is always willing to throw a bit of a wrench into the gears there every so often. So we'll see what these guys end up doing as we hop on to game number 1. Ascension Ire for our first map. We're going to be starting down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map. Top the red Protoss player. Put your hands together. For our European player, it's Rail.
In the top left, as the blue Protoss, it is the Australian Probe.
Alrighty. Rail has probably been actually one of the players that has been warming up and practicing the most during Cheeseadelphia. He was one of the few players that actually was here super early in the morning on Friday, participating in that boot camp, playing, I think, before even like Joe, one of the guys who heads up Cheeseadelphia, was here. Wow. And is just really, really diligent and really adamant about getting that good practice. He was saying that he also wasn't really too jet lagged yesterday, and that it really is feeling a bit tired, but just because it had been a long day of games, and now he can actually feel maybe a bit more refreshed. He hasn't had to play for too many games. He played like maybe that one series earlier on today, and this is just the second series of the day.
Yeah, a little bit nicer on the players today. Yesterday was actually fitting in. Oh, I was almost going to do math on stream, but a lot more players. Now it's condensed here, so they also get like a little more, you know, knowledge of when they're going to play. So it's easier to plan around. It's a little bit of a mistake, but might as well just acknowledge its mistake and change it immediately.
It's better to let the pylon finish and then realize you can't build your Nexus there.
Yeah.
That's definitely happened to me before.
You know, that happened to Stats, I want to say, or Hero or something like that, on Blackpink. They put a pylon in the wrong position, and they couldn't take the Nexus, so they just took the third. It definitely was a mistake.
I think if it happened to me, I think I would just take a corner base and be like, all right, we're playing hidden Expos in this game.
Do you think that, I mean, whoever you're facing, though, would be like, well, this player is just bad. They put the pylon in the wrong spot. I think they would really get like caught up in the mind games. Like, well, wait a second. Did he know he was going to do this?
Yeah. It's actually really funny, too, because I was trying to get some of the players to let me play unranked games on their account. Like a lot of the really high-level Protoss players, you know, 6.2K, 6.5K, 6.6K MMR. And I was really hoping I could just play a game against another GM player, just so I could go back in the replay and watch them go like, okay, but he's somewhere around this MMR, so there's something I'm missing. And just see them scouting around the map, looking for Expos, looking and trying to like scan constantly on my base. Like, what is this guy doing? His resources have to be going somewhere. I'm sitting there with like a 3K mineral bank. I'm on 2 bases.
You're that bad.
Yeah, I'm just
now,
that
now
bad.
Now we know.
Exactly. Well, we do actually have a Stargate opening facing off versus a Robo opening. Also got a little bit of a Stalker skirmish that happened in the middle of the map. Rail going to be taking the advantage there, as it was just one Stalker. We haven't had any Stalker losses so far. And oh, actually, this is kind of a really nice position for Rail, because he not only gets up over here, he's going to be able to get some good damage on. I mean, a Sentry force seals in, but I think that actually Probe needs to force seal these units out next time, because he's going to lose a lot of these Stalkers.
Well, they are going to be, I guess, an even trade at the very end here. Well, the Probe also.
Yeah, I mean, you also using up the force field energy means that you're going to be able to scout out a lot later on with that Sentry. But I guess he also has his own Oracle coming out, so it's not as big of a deal. That's true.
I was going to say that the reason to force field them out would have been to stop the follow-up scout, which might have been worth it, but he just saw an opportunity when it was already a little too far gone, as he wasn't expecting the Stalkers to just run up there like they did. But the Oracle is going to get some nice scouting for Probe. Just one, and then into a Robo and a Forge. I mean, with Rail not going for a Stargate, you'd assume that there's going to be some advantage for him here. Maybe the faster +1 or the faster Immortal production, but just continuing to build workers, both of them.
Yeah, it seems like Rail actually, like you said, not really getting too much advantage out of that early Robo. He just goes for the quick Observer, and that can actually be important, because once in a blue moon, you will see that player go for the fast DTs in PvP, and you're like, ha, gotcha, you went for a Stargate opening, and you can't actually Revelation 2 DTs in 2 different places. And you're like, oh, okay, well, you got me, GG, or, you lose a bunch of units or something. But just getting out that early Observer, kind of nice to keep an eye out and play pretty safe, but not really following it up with anything.
It's also in a really weird position. He put it in surveillance mode right outside his own base.
I think it's mostly just because he wants to have his Stalkers in position for the Oracle. It's sort of like it's like trying to cut corners. You don't want to have to build the shield battery. Like you see Probe building the shield battery in his main base, ready to deal with counter aggression. Rail, on the other hand, really just wants to try and he actually does have a shield battery in his main base, so he should actually be fine versus the Oracle. Maybe he's anticipating the second Oracle to come out.
I suppose. I mean, maybe we'll move that Observer later on.
Yeah.
They have gotten pretty thorough scouting of the mid-game here. So it'll be a little bit later before they want to check third bases, for instance, or perhaps if there is a different tech coming out. But as you were talking about, Charge Out Immortal Archon is pretty much the standard go-to for composition. There was a period of time, of course, Disruptors ruled all. There's even times where Colossus were tried to be forced back into the meta, but it really is just seemed to be the safer, more expected play to go for Charge, and they're really doing mirrored builds here, even to the +1 armor or attack.
Yeah, I mean, slightly faster Templar Archives coming out for Rail, just because, again, he opened up with the Robo. He kind of got into this position a little bit faster since he didn't have to go for the Stargate. The big advantage that Probe will have is, well, not only is he getting up a lot of his gateways a little bit faster on, but he's also got that Oracle. He can keep an eye on his opponent's army, and positioning in these fights is also very, very important. So while the Observer can also kind of spot things out a bit, the Oracle's a little bit better at just keeping an eye on your opponent's army.
I wonder if Probe realizes how little scouting Rail has. I mean, he knows there's Observers as a possibility, but that could be at his natural or his third or in the middle of the map. He doesn't necessarily see all Observers just because he's Protoss and knows what they look like or something, right? There could be, but if he did realize, you only have one Observer and I know where it is, I've seen it with the Oracle. Well, not the Dark Shrine,
I
but I mean the lack of third base, go for an all-in, predict that he's going to go for a third base, and then be very, really aggressive. But
that's definitely a good point. I mean, you have the sentries that are available to try and get some scouting information. You hallucinate some Phoenix, but we actually have a little bit of a move out over here from Rail. It's going to be relatively even supplies overall. The Immortal count still looking pretty good over here for Rail, but on the other side of the map, there's also 3 Immortals out for Probe. He's got a very nice spread out of his units, so if there is a big engagement, I actually really like Probe's chances with the kind of, I mean, you don't talk about it too often, but Defender's advantage definitely becomes a big factor here.
Well, he's going to get the Concave on top of the ramp. He will be able to go back into a shield battery. I doubt that Rail's going to be getting very much because there is an assumption perhaps at any point from either player that this could go into a third base. I mean, they both were at 2-base all-inning up until now, that is.
Yeah.
But that was totally a possibility. But Probe didn't go for the third base, and Rail is going to see that very shortly and then have to commit to the pushing into the severe Defender's advantage, which is that shield battery, in this case, of the natural.
Yeah, the Warp Prism can provide a lot of its own little micro ability. Oh, the army gets scattered out. This is really nice. Probe gets a bit more time to reposition his army, knowing that they're coming in from the south side. Ooh, moves a couple of Zealots over to the right. He's going to try and come in on those Immortals from behind, while the Archons and the Zealots are at the front. It looks like Rail may have caught a glimpse of it as he does go after those Zealots. He cleans them up. It might not seem like a huge deal, 2 Zealots, but they really can mess with the AI of those Immortals.
Well, he's sending them all across the map. Yeah, I mean, the Oracle comes in and sees that there are openings a little bit, and he shift clicks on the probes. I guess he will be able to take some out.
I think we actually had a feedback coming down, trying to prevent any Force Fields from coming out. Probe losing a lot of his Zealots fairly early on to the Archons, as 4 Archons really able to deal out the damage. On the other side of the map, 9 workers go down. Rail is getting forced into a very awkward position where he kind of has to get a lot more damage done here, but he's not really able to find the angle, especially with the shield battery helping out. You got the faster Immortal, I guess, rally in over here from Probe, although he's actually making another Observer now.
Probe just seems to be in a fine position. Like, I'm really not sure what else Rail can do micro-wise to force this into a victory, being how close they are. Now Probe is getting the +3 weapons. Will give him an even bigger advantage. He knows that their base still hasn't been taken, that the Zealots did a bit, and there is the Dark Shrine coming out for Probe.
Yeah. I mean, Rail doesn't have much detection really out right now. He has 1 Observer, and guess what? The funny thing about PvP and getting detection is that your 1 Observer covers either your army or covers one of your bases. It doesn't cover both. And if Rail is continuing to just be aggressive on this side of the map, he's not going to have any sort of detection on the other side of the map. So it kind of forces Rail into this awkward spot where he needs to get up that 2nd Observer at some point.
This could be... This is such a wonky PvP. I would have really expected someone to get like a 3rd base by now, and then potentially had to cancel it, because you know how aggressive they both could have been. But still no attempts to reach out for that, despite a couple times banking 400 minerals. And now Probe is kind of looks to be almost like baiting Rail and saying, like, you know, maybe you'll come to me again. I was, after all, the one that killed your probes. But this could just be a front, you know? He's also saying, you know, keep the Observer over here to see what my army's doing. Check out what I'm doing. Don't keep the Observer back at home, because his Dark Shrine is almost done. It's done. We just have a proxy pile, and eventually they'll make their way across the map.
Okay, next Revelation comes down on a handful of his units. Probe tries to go for another counterattack. But as the game goes on, I mean, Rail has not remade any of the workers he lost. So 35 workers, not really even that great in terms of optimal saturation for 2 bases. But 3 DTs warped in, and the Warp Prism making its way across the map. I believe that Probe is... Probe is not really going to encounter a whole lot of defenses here if he warps in.
Yeah, that was a little mistimed. If that was, 1, looked at, so it did avoid the pylon, and then 2, waited for the Dark Templar, then that could have been really powerful. But it looks like Rail was simply expecting Zealots from it anyways, so he just keeps a couple units, but really he also needs detection.
Oh boy. Oh, I love this. This is actually just a classic tactic. It's hard to make it work against like world-class players such as Rail, but you load in a couple of Zealots, and sometimes you just get that notification, you immediately jump over, and you're like, okay, some Zealots, and you just send some units over. You don't actually notice that the DTs are also swiping away, so we'll see if Rail is on point. If he immediately starts up that Observer, he already has started up that Observer. GG gets called. He's not even going to try it. Probe takes a quick game number, well, not a quick game number 1, but feels very sudden.
It was very sudden. That is the better way to put it. I mean, it was a decently long game.
Look at that smile. Look at that smirk. He knows what he did.
Cheeky, like, grin, right? Where, like, I don't know if he was really just the one that... He should be the one that understood what was going on, because he had better scouting. But I don't know. Like, it just honestly felt like, even though he had better scouting as the Oracle, Rail... I don't know, like, they had similar things happening.
Yeah, I mean, Rail had the faster Observer and everything, and Probe had the Oracle that was able to continuously check out that army. But, yeah, I feel like, to me, it really came down to 2 things. 1, those Zealots ran by with the Oracle and killed off 9 workers, and since Rail chose not to reproduce them, as the game went on, Probe just got further ahead. Yeah. So the fact that he went for a Dark Shrine meant that his army wasn't actually smaller.
I think it's just amazing because clearly, I think Probe did just realize what was going on. He was like, okay, you're gonna attack me, and I'm gonna defend because I'm gonna do the exact same thing. I just won't attack into you and defender's advantage. And then the 2 Zealots, or the 3 Zealots, I guess, the one to get picked off, was exactly what he knew would work. He'd be like, if I kill any probes of yours and we're in a similar position, then obviously I'm in the lead. Yeah. And that's exactly what happened. It was such like a small difference to make. It wasn't like Probe got away with the third base as
Yeah,
well
yeah.
because he knew it was happening. It was literally just a slight Probe lead.
And that is the cool thing, I think, that you really end up having to appreciate about the mirror matchups, is that the players that are very good at mirror matchups are the ones that can pick up on very subtle cues and turn them into bigger and bigger and bigger advantages as the game moves on. And that is very much an art in and of itself. And that's a lot of the reason why we see so many mirror matchups that will look kind of silly, like they'll look very one-sided, and then someone will just throw the game back to their opponent because they didn't realize what subtle advantages they had or what subtle disadvantages they had.
Yeah. This was just, I really do think it came down to scouting, though. The Zealots passed the 2 that killed 7 probes, got the scout on what was the fence and the natural, so he would always note, like, hey, no cannons. And it would make sense that it'd be no cannons, too, because he knew Rail was 2 base all inning. You don't want to invest into defense at home if you think you can get away with it. But, as I said, I kind of have a weird PvP. I always expect that third base to come down at some time, and then there's the epic, like, can he hold it, can he not?
Yeah, we actually look back at that game. The most action we saw was when the 2 stalkers ran up the ramp and got force fielded in.
Yeah.
That was actually the most real army versus army action we ever saw in that game.
It really is. You know, the poke forward from Rail at one time was clearly like a, oh yeah, I can't. There's actually no advantage here, so I'm just back off. And
let's not gauge into rallying in immortals and also shield batteries and faster warpins, all this other stuff.
That's not a game I expect to see again. The perfect, almost perfect mirror, and then, you know, Rail not really divvying up any, like, he didn't go for a War Prism, he didn't try and go for, like, superior tech and fit in a Templar Archive or something. Like, he did just stay on what he planned. I think if we have a mirror game like that again, and Probe's going to be, like, cheeky, like, I know exactly what you're doing, and I'm just going to send a couple of units out, I think Rail would probably be like, well, here's my trick. Here's my Dark Shrine. Here's my whatever, third base that's hidden in the top left, you know? But I also just don't think it'd be that mirrored. There's so many openers in PvP. I actually really enjoy this matchup. I think that it's it has a possibility to go like super short or super long and have different compositions.
Yeah, as much as I am very sad about the, I guess, like the change with the Disruptor, because I think the Disruptor was a very cool unit, I'm very happy kind of about the reduction of the impact of the Disruptor in PvP. Like, M. Canning's divorce with the Disruptor aside, like, the removal of the Disruptor, or like the reduction, the heavy reduction of the Disruptor in the matchup has really put it in a really cool place. It's like you said, there's a big variety. You brought back a lot of like those, I mean, the Stargate opening still kind of existed before, but like going into that Charge-Lot Archon style, you go into like these potential super late game situations. There's a big variety in how you can kind of do things. Even though it tends to be a lot more of that Charge-Lot Archon Immortal composition, you open up and you get there in a lot more different ways. Whereas I think we kind of got into a bit of a stagnant place with Blinkstalker Disruptor for a while.
We definitely were. And then when the, how to say, right, there's been a more recent change than the first Disruptor change. But before the most recent change, you did have a couple PvPs that were the most extreme bowling PvPs ever. Like, people were going Disruptor, Blinkstalker again, and it was just so quick that it was really stupid. And now it just, with the most recent nerf, it just never happens at all.
Yeah.
But it was fun. It was kind of chaotic, not really like you can't judge that matchup when it's like that.
Yeah.
I don't think the players could either. I was amazed when Neeb could split it all versus them. But anyways, now we're at that point where the composition is usually Charge-Lot Archon. You still have so many ways to get there. And that is can be fun. We're going on Abyssal Reef next. It's I think someone's computer crash or something, so that's why it took a little while.
All right. Well, Abyssal Reef, definitely a pretty fun standard map. We gotta enjoy it while we can. It's disappearing for forever till the next Dream Pool.
I think it's a respectable time to leave, you know? Like,
it has been in for 3 seasons
like, it's
now.
like Grandpa that can't really... No, actually, that's getting really grim. Never mind. I'm not going to go with that one.
Wow.
I'm not going to go with that analogy. But its time is up, okay? Like, it needs to be like, let go.
Okay. Well, we're going to be starting up here in the top left-hand corner of Abyssal Reef. The red Protoss player. Put your hands together for Rail.
In the bottom right, as the purple Protoss. That's not purple, that's blue. Why did I go with purple? The blue Protoss. It is Probe. I wanted the alliteration. Damn it,
I was half waiting for you to just introduce Snoot or something there. It's like, wait a second, I recognize that player. That's Snoot. For those who don't know, Probe and Snoot are considered identical lookalikes. We've even had I mean, we've even had, I remember there was a photo that I showed, I think it was Snoot, and it was a photo of Probe, and he looked at me, I was like, when did you take this of me? Like, he actually thought it was a photo of him for a moment, because it was a photo from, like, sort of behind playing the game of StarCraft, so it was, like, behind the head. Yeah, you see a little hand, you see a little bit of the face, but even he was confused for a moment.
Okay, in that case, I can see it, and I do know there's been some pictures that look awful a lot alike, but well, they don't look. Not
people
twinsies.
have tried face swapping Probe and Snoot, and people couldn't tell that anything was face swapped.
Okay, well that's fair. That's fair as well. Anywho, so let's talk about different openers, and while Blitz Reef is that standard map, I don't expect anything map dependent to happen here. I want something different. I want a little bit more of aggression. There are definitely earlier attacks that can be made. Probe was not expecting the two stalkers to run up the ramp for it, or was that Rail? I'm actually getting this confused. No, it was Probe.
Yeah.
He wasn't expecting the stalkers to go up that ramp. Imagine if Rail had also had a third stalker and a proxy pylon that has continued pushing forward. Would have gone worse.
Absolutely. Well, double gateway opening, pretty standard in the matchup. We got the two stalkers coming out. There was like a short period of time where I felt like we saw a comeback for the Adepts coming out in the matchup, but I'm not going to lie, I never was a huge fan of the double Adept opening. I feel like you would occasionally get little bits of pieces of damage done, but I just felt like it left you very ill-prepared for like the Oracle follow-up. Well,
oh, sure.
Ill-prepared is not necessarily the best way of putting it. It's not like you were totally screwed over, but it left you kind of feeling a little bit more vulnerable.
I liked it when it did lead to that aggression that I was just talking about.
Yeah,
when you
that's
get the
true.
You get the Adepts to go forward. They see the Adepts. They do that whole, well, I got to go back home and defend because I can't put a pylon down in time or something, whatever,
Yeah.
right? They go home, and that's when you get away. It's like, for me, I watched those Adepts, and I thought of the Lings, the early pool Lings against a Terran, into the
yeah.
Ravager push or something, you know? Like, the whole point is just to get them not to scout you. But yeah, I agree. It does seem like the Adepts openers are falling out. Stargate opening again for Probe.
Yep. Instead, we got the faster Sentry follow-up over there from Rail, so he's going to get his own form of scouting eventually with this hallucinated Phoenix. Gets up that safety shield battery inside the main base in case his opponent... Actually, I do wonder what the exact timing of that shield battery is. If there's like... Because I'm trying to think what could possibly be coming in around this early on. Just because the Oracle wouldn't be hitting for almost another minute and a minute and a half. I wonder if it's just for Adepts.
Even if it was the one base target?
Yeah, actually, you know what? That's a fair point. Maybe if it was like a proxy Stargate or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know about the likelihood of being a proxy, because
Yeah.
Rail did get some scouting with the Probe, but there is always that chance they slap down a Stargate before a Nexus, and you just don't get to catch it.
Yeah. By the way, for those who don't know, a shield battery versus an Oracle, it effectively makes the Oracle invalid. The Oracle is basically like a 4-year-old child trying to wrestle like, I don't know, the mountain or something from Game of Thrones.
Oh,
like
okay.
it's kind of one-sided. Like there's nothing that gets done.
You make it sound like the shield battery is epic. I mean, you didn't make the toddler sound epic, but like the shield battery is epic. But really, I see it as just like the cat that like is like fishy, and then the shield battery is like no fishy, no really fishy and no fishy. Like it's really kind of silly watching the two beams attack each other.
But there's an opportunity. There's no shield battery over the natural. It's just a sentry or 2 sentries and a stalker. There's actually a huge opportunity. Oh, but Probe's not moving in immediately, and it looks like maybe some more units will get made over there. Second Oracle. Okay, I understand why Probe's not moving in right now. It's because the 2 Oracles can bypass the shield battery's healing, so you actually get some damage done, but just because there's so few units there, I actually think there's a great opportunity for Probe to just jump on the sentries and maybe kill them off and then kill off some Probes.
Oh, that would be pretty bold, even with 2 Oracles. Yeah,
2 Stalkers do not do that much damage.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, but I think you're right. But I also think that the whole like idea of him just running back to the shield battery and then the Oracles like awkwardly glide away, but not that fast because acceleration is kind of weird.
I can definitely understand that. The shield battery finishing up a little bit further to the front, not quite covering the mineral line, but definitely a place they can then run back to. Twilight Council follows up for Probe. So he gets into that normal old mid game that we saw in the last game.
There should be something that you give up for a Stargate opener, because what you get is so much scouting that it is so usually worth it to give up.
Gets 1 sentry. That's really nice.
That is nice, because the Oracles live
Force
too.
on a Guardian Shield. That doesn't work versus the Oracle. It's a spell.
Yo, but no, didn't they change that?
Did they?
Yo, okay. So for the longest time, I thought that it was a spell because it was ultra effective against ultras. But then there was like a patch or something where it was like it is now normal damage instead of spell, or vice versa.
Did I miss the point in the meta where people were like, Ultralisk, let me make some oracles?
Yes, you did. How'd you miss that one? No, I'm just kidding. But it would happen, and I would be like, okay, that's kind of funny. But I don't remember what it is anymore. You can't check on this stupid WCS overlay.
Oh, so bitter. Oh my god, another one of the oracles gets focus fire down. The double oracle. I mean, the shield battery helps out a good bit and buys some time, but double oracle damage is really, really high. So Rail still luckily keeps alive one of the sentries that has a lot of energy, but oh god, that he's really not going to have nearly as many of those hallucinate Phoenix Scouts available. And on top of that, he's remaking some of these oracles every so often, so he's losing out on a ton of gas income.
Okay, we do have different compositions coming in here. Resident Glaives versus Blink Colossus, maybe? I mean, we're talking about Disruptors, but is he really going to go Disruptors? Some people go into Colossus.
Unless, if this is some, no, it's Disruptors. Yeah, I was going to say, like, unless this is some new meta situation, Colossus just roll over in mid-game. Like,
yeah.
Even in the old school when it used to be Colossus versus Colossus armies.
Oh, yeah.
Going for Chargelet Archon was considered in the mid-game, like, that was the timing push that you went for. So, like, I could not see Colossus working. Disruptors, okay, here's the thing. They get a lot of flack, but they do still technically work. The way that they work right now is that they have a 1-second charge-up time. But if your opponent commits with their charge lots immediately and then you roll out that big disruptor hit, there is still kind of that opportunity. It's like, oh, well, it's too late. You committed your charge to it. You're going in whether you like it or not.
Yeah, the Disruptor changed in such weird, small ways because of the way the attack changed. Like the build-up that you're talking about was the most recent nerf to it, but before that, you had to recognize that the change was like you used to have a timer, so you could predict and hit. But now it just pops up the first thing. So there's some cool micro you can do against it. But then again, there's some other situations where the micro works against you 100% of the time. Charge lots are
7
tricky.
workers killed. That's really nice.
But what's trickier is to talk about charge lots. These disruptors are going up against what would have been Resident Glaives. Just kidding. 2 Stargates slapped down.
If it was just, oh god, yeah, that would have actually been really, really rough. Adepts do not fare well. I don't care what change happened in the Disruptors. Adepts do not fare well versus Disruptors.
They clump a lot worse than charge lots.
Oh man, when is Probe going to move out with this? Because that is going to be a very critical thing. If you move out very early on, then, hey, yeah, you know what? Your Disruptors can do a ton of damage. They can really catch your opponent with their pants down. But if he waits a long time, the double stock or the double Stargate transition, going out a lot of Void Rays or something, is really strong in PvP if you can get up to a critical mass. Oh, it's going to be Phoenix. Okay, wait, did Rail scout this out, the Robotics Bay?
He might have known Probe to someone who tries that.
Yeah,
he hasn't scouted the Robotics Bay. He even got the second Robo. I don't know when's the last time he saw the army. The Stalkers have been off to the left side for quite some time. But something tipped him off. Perhaps it was the simple lack of attack. I mean, they both didn't attack, though.
I guess if you see a lot of Stalkers, you probably are thinking, wait a second, you're not making charge lots. Something is off here.
Yeah, that's why I questioned was the last time he saw the army.
Yeah.
He's trying to find, like, something over here.
And he's moving in with the Immortals by themselves. That's kind of a bold move.
Yeah, but the Phoenixes, you're right. Let's talk about the Phoenixes. They are a direct counter, basically, to Disruptors. Now, I think it's a little bit trickier, again, because Disruptors aren't time-based as they are something hits it based. So the Phoenixes might not get the lifts as fast as or as dependable.
Loses one of the Phoenix, and I mean, these Phoenix are very important. There's a lot of these Disruptors available. Okay.
They still have a very short cooldown too, so it still looks really silly.
All right, gets one free little kill over there on the Stalker. Again, that 1 second charge up time gives Rail a ton more time to react and start pulling back and trying to evade those shots, but he really needs some more of these Phoenix to try and disable the shots if he ever tries to take an engagement, because all of the 1 second cooldown really ends up doing, I mean, there's a potential to snipe off the Disruptor, but for the most part, it just gives you more time to retreat. It doesn't help you engage into the opponent's army unless you just get that Phoenix lift up very quickly.
If you have a Phoenix and you lift up all the Disruptors, you can even easily win the fight, but he doesn't have that many Phoenix yet. There's just so many Disruptors.
Yeah.
Now they're just zoning, and Rail is walking into it. I'm not sure this is really the time to go, however. He's taking so much damage for the Phoenixes fly in.
And the Zealots all getting picked off right there, so the frontline buffer isn't really there anymore. Probe still has a fair number of disruptors. He's still making 2 at a time. He's grabbing a 4th base behind this, so he's not exactly falling behind in that regard either. The Phoenix count is growing. It's no longer getting picked off by the Stalkers or anything, so there's still hope over here for Rail. But I do wonder, when does Probe maybe start to transition out of this?
Never.
I mean, he can
Just
still
go more disruptors.
Yeah, I mean, you can still make disruptors for a little bit, but there's a point of diminishing returns, and when you start to want to round out your composition. So it's not even saying transition out in the sense like he doesn't get any more disruptors and he never reproduces the ones he loses, but you do need a point where you start to get up other tech.
Well, I would certainly like to see at least like more Archons and more High Templars to feedback.
Oh yeah, that would be nice.
There's no Templar Archives quite yet. There we go. Getting a shield upgrade as well. But going into Stargates, especially if he kills these ones, would be a nice transition. Force building off the rest of the army as well.
How do you engage into this right now? The Stalkers can actually blink on top. Okay, well the Zealot's actually doing some friendly fire, or causing some friendly fire when the Disruptor hits. Stalkers starting to get some pickoffs on the Zealots, but I think that Probe is just getting surrounded, picked up. He tries to recall out, but he's going to lose a lot in the process.
I'm surprised the Phoenixes didn't die quicker.
Oh, the Stalkers are still alive. They're killing out so many of these workers. Because there's damage happening over by the 3rd base right now. Some Adepts killing off more and more of these workers. The Stalker's still going ham in the natural expansion. Probe, he loses a lot of his army, but he does trade out versus a ton of the economy of Rail.
Yeah, 36 probes is a lot to lose there. Probe is getting to his 4th base saturation. Now they're down by 20 workers. That is...
Rail's making Colossus.
That's going to help. That's going to help. Yeah, I don't know about this Colossus choice from Rail, but I'm also, again, like to watch that fight over again, I'm surprised my Phoenixes didn't die.
Yeah, I also think that the Colossus may... Oh, that's a nice pick off on the War Prism. I think that the Colossus may have been a reaction to the fact that there have been no Archons in the composition for Probe. He did finish up the Templar Archives now, and he can make some of those Archons. Stalkers, I like this, just being aggressive with them since they do have Blink. You can get some free pickoffs here and there.
This Colossus almost, until he makes the second one, I guess it's not a mistake, because I'm wondering if it was, he hasn't gotten extended Thermal Lance, and he has 2 Robo and wasn't making like 2 at a time.
Yeah. So
I really don't know. We'll see what he continues on with. Worth noting that Probe didn't just get a shield upgrade because he wanted to. He was already done with +3 attack, so there is a significant upgrade advantage for Probe here. He's going up to a 2 full upgrade advantage right now, and that is a little scary. It's still mostly, well, still a lot of it is about the ground base, the non-disruptive, non-Phoenix.
Oh, the Phoenix finally catching some of these Stalkers, and this is where it gets a little bit more difficult. Losing a bunch of those Stalkers. Rail is going to back up, though, to try and deal with the continued Stalker aggression. Oh man, Rail has to be, or sorry, Probe has to be so careful about this. He actually uses his Blink early on, so now he can't really escape away from this army anymore. It's still on cooldown for a little bit. The Phoenix, if they, I mean, they can just lift up all these Stalkers. Yeah, there's no escape here. This is a lot of losses for Probe to be taking.
Probe must be wanting to get rid of these Stalkers, though. I think, you know, to commit that many, especially to an attack like that, and not just immediately leave.
I would agree with that if he was closer to being maxed out, then he's trying to trade out that armor composition. But right now, he was sitting down 30-40 supply. I think he needed to buy more time with those Stalkers.
I do agree with that. I think blinking into the main base and just continuing to buy time would have been a really smart move. And you're right, he's not maxed out. He's not really close to maxing out either. So why just give away the army and kind of like also show your hand a little bit? You just told Rail you lost a significant amount of supply, so he probably has a superior army moving in here, and he's up by 40? 30 army supply?
Okay, kills off 1 Archon, but the Disruptor's just getting lifted up by the Phoenix. There's actually not that much energy left over on these Phoenix, but he gets the important Disruptors. 1 Disruptor actually out for Rail, I believe, and he is going to be able to power through this 4th base. Zealot counterattack on the other side of the map. Does pull some units in that position, but plus the shield battery and some of those Immortals, it looks like Rail's going to be able to defend and be on the offensive successfully.
I'm really questioning Probe's plan in this game. It looks like he's going to lose right here, right now. Although the army supply, really at an advantage, gets evened up more than I thought it would. And without the buffer, the Colossus will not be so safe anymore.
All
so
the
Probe
Phoenix
holds.
just died too, and the Archons do a ton of damage. Huh?
So did the Disruptors, though. So
the Disruptors died, but I actually think Probe is probably more okay with that. I actually think that Rail's army looks really flimsy right now.
I don't know. The Phoenixes were there for the Disruptors. Now that they're both gone, does it really matter?
I mean, that's a fair point. There are so many Archons in this army, though. I actually think if you guys just pounces on this, I mean, the Immortals are going to do very little. The Zealots are going to do very little. The Colossus is going to do very little. And Probe still keeps alive as Immortals. He's powering through this.
I mean, Probe's army was better, but Rail had the numbers. I mean, this is really the story of the battles, the last 2 battles. But
that's true.
Above that, we have Rail, who is on a 4th base with 56 probes, who is comfortable taking maybe not great, favorable trades, as long as they're not terrible.
Oh, 1 DT at the 3rd, sniping off a few units.
All right.
Does Rail actually have an observer? I don't. Rail's gonna recall.
Oh, that lost so many units.
Oh god, that was a bit painful. But that 1 DT. Forcing a recall back, plus also killing off a handful of those units on the retreat, this is really good.
It made him lose like 15-20 army supply just with the recall. That was a pretty value DT right there. And now Probe, with an even army supply, but a superior army type, has a shot to kill the 4th.
Yeah, and he needs to do some damage because, yes, the worker income or the economies are relatively even in terms of workers, but he has lost that 4th for quite a bit of time now, whereas Rail does have 4 Nexus, able to produce 4 workers at a time if he so chose to. Nice shield battery, keeping that cannon alive for a while. But, yeah, again, as the game goes on, Probe really needs to get that 4th up a little bit faster and can find some damage in the meanwhile.
He took a little bit more time than, I mean, I would have won it if I was if I was cheering for him.
He's still killing off some more workers, I think, over at that natural.
Yeah, and he got a couple of gateways there, so protection is going to play a part eventually. It's not bad, but there was an opportunity when he was at even army supply, and that would have been a little bit better. Oh well. Still would have been up against Defender's advantage.
Well, warps another DT. Look, seeing that, hey, first one was pretty effective. He's going to walk it on over. He even has a couple of Zealots join the force. He can move into the natural while he pokes in over by the 4th and just try to not commit as hard as he can.
That DT is going to be problematic. Even with the, like, if there's an observer there, there's a lot of damage. Some Immortals dropping on the front line, soaking up a lot of damage is like a really awesome idea, but with such large numbers of very powerful units.
Oh, the natural. He's getting a lot of good damage on taking out all those Zealots. Now he can finally start to get in on top of those probes. There's a photon cannon being built, but even an Immortal going to get caught over here.
Yeah, just the DTs just do a lot of damage. Rail is caught in a bit more of an awkward position. He's the one that doesn't have the concave, despite being the defender, and that Colossus isn't doing much.
And the Immortal Micro is actually doing a great job absorbing a lot of those hits from his opponent's Immortals. The Warp Prism, oh my god, Pro is going to be able to bring that game back 2-0 now.
What a wonky game. I mean, that first game, it really seemed like he just knew what was up, and he countered it, like, slightly. But yeah, he countered it. This game, it seemed like he had a good plan, and then he, kind of, made a difference in composition, okay. But then I really felt like he was the one that screwed up. I really felt that way in the mid-game. I was like, well, the Disruptors aren't working anymore.
The Disruptors did not work.
He lost a 4th base. Like, what is he doing? Why is he doing away with these Stalkers? But at the end, his superior upgrades and the army type that worked so well with those upgrades, Mass Archon with shield upgrades, was better than a couple of Immortals, a Colossus, and a handful of Zealots.
Absolutely. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we've got ready to hop into game number 3. It's going to be match point for this player, Probe. Getting ready to move on to that semifinals, potentially, but he's got to take one more game. And I'm not going to lie, Zombie Grub, I think after that last game, Probe was like, I tried Disruptors, it didn't work. Let's go back to normal.
Yeah, maybe. It is one of those games, though, where I look at it and I'm like, well, I'm not usually at a 2-0. I'm pretty confident for the person who's 2-0, but I'm like, that last game was pretty wonky. Like, I feel like that actually is a sign. Like, Rail should look at me like, okay, I could have had that game. I could take a third game. I mean, that makes it even more
frustrating, right? Where you're like, I could have had that game, but I didn't.
Depends on his mental fortitude, I suppose. Is he like, I should have had that game, darn it? Or is he like, I should have had that game, I can do it again?
I mean, it's relying on Probe doing the same thing again, I think, in that situation.
Well, that's true. That's true, yeah. I mean, obviously, Probe is up 2-0 in 2 very different games, so he's looking like the superior player, but not so much that I think Rail is going to get bopped here.
I think Rail definitely has a very strong chance of bringing this back, but we're going to have to wait and see as we hop into the game and introduce the players on Blackpink. Starting down here in the bottom left-hand corner of the map, we have the red Protoss player on his last lifeline at Cheesadelphia. Give it up for Rail.
And in the top right, as the blue Protoss, it is Probe.
Oh boy. So one thing that we have noticed throughout these 2 games. You know, 2 data points make a line. I can draw conclusions now. Probe seems to like going for that Stargate opening. Rail seems to like kind of skipping it. We'll see if that happens one more time, kind of cement the theory. But it does provide a lot of that extra vision, and you have to remember the beginning of that game for Probe also start off with a decent number of worker kills from those oracles.
Yeah, that's true, and even a sentry got knocked out. So
2 sentries even actually later on.
Yeah, I do feel like the Oracle opener, especially when it's not super committed, so if it doesn't do damage, you're in trouble. But like a 2-base Stargate opener is worth whatever, like the later Robo, the later Twilight, like whatever, just because that's where Defender's Advantage would kick in. If you got that and you were later to whatever, X, Y, or Z, and you saw the attack incoming, that's where Defender's Advantage probably makes up for it anyways.
Yeah.
And unless it's a very, I think, extreme situation, which I did talk about the more aggressive games last game. We didn't really get to see that either. The Oracles were damage dealers, but they weren't all in. I would still love to see something like that happen here. A little bit more on the micro as well in the beginning, but these guys have just kind of been smoothly sailing to the mid game.
All right. For a moment, thought a Probe getting supply block, but nope, he's super on point with all that stuff. Times out his Cybernex Quarian's pylon and everything else all at the exact perfect moment. Starts up those 2 stalkers. Pretty normal 2-stalker opening.
Yep.
Rails? Wait, was it Rail the one that got momentarily supply blocked or something? Because
Down by 2.
I guess he might. He doesn't even has less resources saved up for that Nexus. So his
No, he's maybe dedicating a little bit more. He has notably stopped building workers before Probe did.
Yeah.
Now Probe stopped.
Oh, his stalkers are a little bit earlier.
Yeah, there is some reason he did that.
Yeah.
I don't think that was a mistake. So.
Okay.
And oh yes, I got what I wanted. The proxy
There we
pylon
go.
does come down. These are all signs towards this, but unfortunately,
Oh.
Probe is going to move out exactly as the Probe suspiciously turns the corner, and that pylon was an easy find.
Oh, Probe even gets the first shot off with the stalkers, and it's not necessarily going to come into effect over here, since it looks like Probe ends up taking a bit more damage on his stalkers in the meanwhile. But 3rd and 4th stalkers are going to be on the way. Probe throwing down that shield battery. With his 3rd and 4th stalkers coming out, he should be able to defend this, but oh god, the shield battery's going to get canceled.
Why is Rail building a shield battery? I guess he's again worried about that 1-base Stargate?
I think he might be transitioning out. I think after the pylon got scouted, he's just saying, well, I might as well use these stalkers for now and feign some more aggression.
Okay. No, I don't mind that
Oh.
idea, except that shield battery isn't really a tech swap.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's also got the Robo coming down behind this. So I think he's preparing for like a counterattack or something.
I guess so.
Oh, super even trades.
Yeah, I mean, 100 minerals, maybe I'm focusing
Yeah.
too much on it. It makes a lot of sense for Probe to get it. He's the one that's under attack, and he's even getting another one. He's really that scared. He doesn't know. He doesn't have any other units across the map re-scouting, but it's a little weird for Rail to add it that quickly, considering he had already given up some economy to do this.
Actually, you know what I'm starting to consider is that Rail doesn't necessarily know what tech Probe went for, and Probe has been going for the Stargates every game. I
Right.
wonder if the shield battery, is just for the Oracle. That's it.
Yeah, I did mention it, but I figured he saw the Nexus timing, and with his superior PvP mind, would be like, oh, that wasn't it. But
Probe
anyways,
sees more stalkers, and this is going to be really important for him because now he knows to continue warping in units. He knows that he needs to get out and Chrono Boost out that blink and trying to get up as good of a defense as possible because that shield battery is going to be very important here.
okay, all right. Bit of a contain. I mean, making
more
Probe
shield
get even,
batteries.
yeah, exactly, more shield batteries, and you are starting to get into the
Oh,
over-preparation.
that's really nice. There's no escape for some of these stalkers, or at least one of them does go down. The other one gets softened up. And, well, I guess he actually has maybe 1 or 2 more Force Seals left over. I'm sure Probe would love to get a Hallucinate Phoenix Scout at some point as well. But now with the shield batteries to finish up, he should feel pretty confident.
Quite unfortunate for Probe to commit to the additional shield batteries. If there's any way for him to tell that this was not going to continue being dedicated, I think he would have, only let one finish, right? But he has, dedicated a little bit more than necessary. It hasn't really made up, I think, for Rail's later Nexus, later Probes, and that shield battery that's a little wonky.
Yeah.
So Probe still finds himself in a good position. Defender's Advantage will make up for the slight army supply difference. An Immortal will help bust down structures, but it still has to go up on a high ground against a still defensive postured Probe. He's finally getting his own Robo, but notably has a much faster blink, or blink at all.
Yeah, and you pair up Blink Stalkers with shield batteries, I mean, you blink back just a little bit, boom, immediately all of your shields are back. They are incredibly effective units when paired with those shield batteries, but Here we go. He might be revealing Blink right here, as there it is. Oh,
Okay.
even baits out the second force field before he blinks.
Oh, that might just alerted Rail the fact that he won't have that quick of an Immortal to help him out, you know, which might, I mean, I don't know what he thinks. Maybe the Stalkers with Blink are preferable to the Immortals, or maybe not, but he's going to pull back here.
Yeah, this takes his third Gas Geyser. Probe finally getting that scout out with the hallucinated Phoenix. He's going to move into the main base and see that there was that Robo down. He's going to see if there was that Immortal on the way, etc. Doesn't quite see the Twilight Council, but I mean, it's pretty rare that you go for just like a Robo and you don't get a Twilight Council by this point in the game. And Adept Harassment coming to the main base. Oh, these Adepts need to time out their attacks together or they're not going to be able to kill anything.
That was pretty awkward.
Oh.
That was a nice location for the shield battery from Probe. Probably very suspicious of a follow-up Stargate when he saw the attack coming. But also just helps out against that Warp Prism as well. So nicely done. Now third base comes down for Probe, who with the Blink Stalker should be taking control of the map as long as he keeps tabs, basically. Like, is he attacking me or is he trying to get a third base?
I was going to say, this is where we get into slightly weird territory, because now both the players are going up for those Blink Stalkers, and Probe is going to be the one that says, okay, yeah, I'm going to get a charge also. But that also means that Rail's charge is going to come out a bit later. He potentially is going to have a hard time. I won't say like pushing, or I won't say that he's going to have a harder time dealing with aggression from Probe right now, because it's very unlikely that Probe going for a third base is going to push out. But he might actually have a little bit of a harder time if he doesn't make his Blink Stalker attack happen and work with these Immortals now.
Well, Rail dedicating a lot with his extra gateways is looking to win this game off of 2 bases. Probe might like leave something to like check that and recheck that, because I don't think he's seen the amount of gateways quite yet.
He might even try and force like a recall or something by just going back in with those Stalkers.
Yeah, that too. He's going to be able to get some free damage on the Probes here. Catching an Immortal is going to be really nice. He's going to go ahead and die for that, but he's got to know the army is heading towards his base. How is he going to defend that?
I mean, he does still have those shield batteries from earlier. Probe's dying, and oh man, even picking off the reinforcing Stalker that was trying to get Warp. If he forces any Warpins back at home, this is also a big win, because he should trade more effectively, cost-effectively versus them with his Stalkers.
A lot of Probes going down, and Rail even took the long way around. He passed by the rocks of Probe before even getting to the natural,
Rail
and he has to go.
Yeah, he can't even waste time going for the third base. The Force Fields do buy a bit of time. He slaps off the Observer, which is kind of nice. That shuts down the high ground vision.
That is really nice, and more Probes are going down. Rail, I don't think he's going to make this attack work. Perhaps if he hadn't had to pay attention back at home, or if he had just committed right then and there, but those force fields were always going to buy some time, and his consolation prize is the third Nexus.
No, you can't just kill the third and be like, okay, well, I'll go back home and try and macro this. There's no macroing out of this situation. You can see he's not making more workers behind this. He's sitting at 31. He's warping at Adepts. He's getting up resonating glaives, interestingly enough. I don't know if he can wait that long. His opponent is going to be so much better of economy. +2 weapons is on the way. Rail has no upgrades on the way. There's only going to be a better and better defense for Probe as this game goes on.
Absolutely agreed. Rail is going to be quite desperate, perhaps hoping that Probe won't get a follow-up scout, and will hope that he has left. But you know, the thing is, Probe did stake out more Stalkers, and that is going to force the recall of the entire army.
Oh man, he might lose most of these Stalkers, but oh god, that was still so worth it. He could lose those Stalkers and maybe 2-3 more, and he'd still be more than happy to make that trade.
Now, Probe doesn't have any Blink Stalkers to catch this War Prism, but if it really is being paid attention to, okay, it is.
Archon's do some damage, and Stalker's still doing some damage. Scouting at that third, Probe realizes, yeah, okay, now is my time. You're trying to transition out. I'm not going to let you do that. He knows that he doesn't even need to go for his own third. He has to be a bit careful about the positioning for where he takes the engagement, just because he still can get into a slightly awkward angle with that kind of army composition that Probe has. He's gotten up those charge lots, but oh, Warp Prism getting solo. Oh, nice snipe up onto the high ground. That is actually going to cause some problems. Probe's army is bigger, but not by that much, and the reinforcements are going to be so much slower now.
He did want that Warp Prism, that's for sure, but he was waiting for +2 as well, which is going to finish in 5 seconds, so maybe not as big of a gap as expected. Stalkers do try and harass the third base, and then get tucked in a corner.
Yeah, nothing there to pick off. Looks like Rail going for the Dark Shrine behind all this. We've got a Hallucinate Archon in the mix, by the way, from Probe. Trying to just eat a couple of shots. Not actually doing so, as it looks like Rail going for the real Archons for now. But man, does Probe have observers? He has one observer out of the map right now.
It's with the army.
Yeah.
So he sees that Rail has an observer with the army. That's what's called the Archon, his hallucination, is perhaps hoping that's, I guess that's the only observer. Rail, that is hoping that's the only observer for Probe. And he would be right. But, you know, if this is going to go to 3 base for a little while longer, there's that chance Probe just slaps down a cannon, realizing, like, okay, I'm kind of getting you contained here. I went for a Dark Shrine earlier in this series. You might be going for a Dark Shrine too, but so far, not so much.
All right. Probe coming in with harassment from multiple angles. The Zealot's going to be running in alongside the War Prism. War Prism's got to be careful because all the Stalkers are heading that way, and they are going to go after that War Prism, allowing the Adepts to handle the Zealots. Dark Shrine does get scouted out. That's also an important scout, and immediately Probe starts up another Observer.
Nicely done. That was a nice scout. The War Prism was really weird.
Yeah.
I don't know about that shift click, but it dies, and for 200 minerals, I guess it distracted a little bit.
Maybe he'll think it's a hallucination.
Oh, wow. The ultimate mind games.
Although, you know, I feel like Probe was in a really good spot before. Now, I feel like it's more just like an evened up game. Not evened up. That's not entirely fair. He's still up a solid 16 or so workers, but I feel like the game is getting closer now.
Yes, I know where you're coming from. Like, it does look closer than when Rail was just, like, losing probes on a 2-base all-in. But it's not just the worker count that's up for Probe. It is the +2 upgrades. Going in a +3.
Almost done. 75% of the way finished. Holy cow.
Yeah. And while sometimes, I suppose, with enough Archon Blast, you're like, did that +3 really do anything? Like, it does. It absolutely does. That's such a severe upgrade advantage.
+3 weapons is insane. Like, a 3 upgrade advantage is absurd. It's actually so absurd you very rarely see it in pro level games. Like,
yeah.
I think this is probably, I would argue that this is probably one of the first times I've seen a +3 versus +0 in at least like 4 or 5 months. Yeah,
some Protosses love getting a faster forge than others, but that at most is an upgrade and a half, I would say, difference. This is a pretty extreme one. So Pro probably clicking on Rail's upgrades, and Rail ditto. Rail knows he's screwed for the upgrades. Is probably always going to be tempted to do a push, but to consider Defender's advantage and any other miscellaneous is still important. The upgrade doesn't automatically win you anything.
Okay, well, Zealots do pretty well when they have +3 weapons versus +0 Adepts, and they actually take on this fight. Probe also just hints and says, hey, my army's down here in the south, don't overcommit too much of that defense in the natural. And there is a DT over there, although it is derping around trying to get the defense up, but now we end up seeing Probe go for, oh god, I love this. The Archon drop actually in the main base. Is that an Archon or is that double immortal? No, double immortal. Sorry, my bad. Yeah. Camera's blocking that, but okay. We got the War Prism getting blunked on. Immortal's gonna get taken out. Not exactly the most efficient trade over here for Probe, but I like the kind of idea that he's just trying to harass his opponent a bit.
Yeah. I mean, Probe might be getting a little bit frustrated here. Like, you know, come on, give me an opening. I know I've won this game.
Those observers might get picked off. There are DTs out of the map, so.
Going to get picked off. Having all of them in one with the control group of his army was a bit of a mistake, but he does have those cannons, so they should never really do a ton of damage.
Depending on how many DTs up against.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. But he's raking the observers pretty quickly here.
Might be able to get a sandwich. All right, coming in from 2 sides, but one half of his army engages a little bit earlier than the other, but look at all these Archons. They're going to shred through those Adepts once they get on top of them. Is this going to be enough? It looks like Probe is starting to power through on the north side, but he's losing a lot of energy. Was that a Disruptor shot coming in from nowhere? Oh, there's 1 DT in the army, though.
I did not notice that Disruptor.
There's 2 DTs in the army now.
There's 4 observers also in Rail's army, but only 1 is needed for Probe as long as he keeps it a little bit behind. There it is now.
Okay.
And he's going to be able to push forward. That's it. GG. Rail taps out, and Probe will take the 3-0 victory.
Advances on to that semifinals. Is going to be feeling good. He flew all the way out.